All right, everyone, it is 7 o'clock on September 11th, 2025, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Kyle Library Board to order. The first order of business is the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. I think everyone should have a copy. Can you please review those and let us know if you have any changes.
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor? Have it.
Second. You second that one?
It was Morgan. Okay, moving right along to citizen comment period. The library welcomes any comments from citizens here to speak, and I believe we do have one. Can you please tell us your first and last name?
Yes, my first name is Ellen. Last name is Ermis. I live here in Kyle and serve on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the Kyle Area Seniors on Board. And just wanted to share little updates of things that are going on with both those groups. So here's my latest newsletter. There are a few with the my business card and phone number if anybody wants to follow up. Also, these are stocked regularly out here. Our organization formed as a nonprofit 20 years ago this February. It will be to save the building there in the park. It was built in 1912, but they're getting ready to tear it down in the early 2000s. And so that's why our group got going. And fast forward to today, here's where we are. And then fast forward to early 2026, we'll be moving over on Daisy Lane, just east of the, well, you know where Kyle Parkway dead ends into Daisy. You take a left and it's just up on the hill. On the right, it's an existing building, but it's just a shell. Next Tuesday, council will award the interior contract to finish it out. We started seeing samples of different colors. It's 4 times the size of this facility. Now, this facility will be repurposed, and we hope it will have an arts and culture library, community center, a purpose. And our town has economic and development department, but you know, economic development and growth is just overwhelming. So the tourism kind of fell aside. This be the chamber, but I don't think it's the chamber anymore. They finally had to admit we don't really have a plan. That's my background. I would love to have us have a plan. Anyway, we do a lot of low-cost solutions. We work with the veterans, Kiwanis. We give away books. In fact, every market day, which is this Saturday, we have a little booth inside. We have free children's books. And then Unforgettable Families and Friends. We do a lot of collaborations to them because seniors need to give back and they need to not be isolated among a bunch of seniors. Just get your organized. Plus, we serve like the sandwich generation because some of us need help and y'all need to know how to cope with that. So we have here a lot of resources, you know, we vet all those resources. Okay. A lot going on with Parks and Rec. Steeplechase made the front page headlines. That's about it. I don't know my time, but
No, you're fine. Thank you.
on the heart. Thank y'all for serving. I was just telling Spencer how it's a small group of leaders in the community. And I thank you and I hope you feel your voices are heard and decisions made accordingly.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for commenting and giving us that information about your initiatives and the public report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking, like some of these committees are very strict and there's no back and forth. But if you want to ask a question and y'all are okay with it,
Oh, I didn't, I was just saying thank you. I didn't have.
Okay.
I probably will afterwards.
Thank y'all.
Okay. If there's no other citizens wanting to comment, we'll can close citizen comments period and move on. The next order of business is going to be to consider and possible action on the recommendation to the city council regarding amendments to the Kyle Public Library policies to clarify language and to provide rules for issues that were initially addressed. So Jessica is going to be presenting that. Once we get started, I would like to go through those in order as you have them listed.
Mhm.
And then like either go through the possible approvals and then move on to the next one instead of reviewing on and coming back, if that would make sense.
So going through the approvals for each individual policy.
Yes, before we move on to the next policy. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna just make sure this is gonna share. I did adjust the temperature. It feels like the heat's on. What was it? I mean, I felt
You're
hot.
really comfortable, but
I was.
have a sweater next to your face.
I'm really cold, so.
So- We are gonna just go through some revisions of the Kyle Public Library policies. A little background, the Kyle Public Library created its first official policies at the beginning of 2025, which is a huge achievement because we never had policies before. So naturally, as time goes on, we'll find issues that we need to address or amend. Then in March, the city council approved these policies and we've implemented them for 4 months and we've identified some improvements that need to be addressed. The first addition I wanted us to add was setting in their language that the Kyle Public Library policies will be reviewed annually. And this is just to establish a process for the library board as opposed to us potentially coming back to this every month. I didn't set a month in there. I thought that could be part of the process, but I did want it to be established that as a board, we would review them annually, and that would give us a year to evaluate any issues that haven't been addressed. Then we wanted to add a statement. We don't have a statement like this currently in the policy, and this just kind of establishes what it's about and the purpose of it. And it reads, the library use policy is designed to promote a courteous and respectful atmosphere among customers and staff. And the Kyle Public Library maintains the right to expel and or suspend an individual from the library who contributes to a disruptive, unsafe, or unwelcoming environment, interferes with another user's ability to use and enjoy the library, or impedes a staff member's ability to do their job. This line will kind of safeguard us with issues that might not be addressed in the policy, but if we see that it's an unsafe behavior, then it allows us to address it accordingly.
So are you wanting to look at these in the policy or do you want us to keep going?
Yes, so my first question would be, I would like to break them out separately,
For each
so,
policy.
yeah,
So we can go through the library use policy, pause, and then go from there.
okay,
Okay. So the library use policy is going to be the one that has the most revisions because it's addressing behavior. Let's see where, oh yeah. We wanted to also add language that states the Kyle Public Library policies. Oh, wait.
We're on the same slide. Do you want me to go?
Yeah,
to the
next one. To add language that a parent or caregiver must actively supervise and be in the immediate vicinity of their children. Currently, it just says that you have to be basically on property. And we've have come across some instances where mom is in the lobby and kids are in the library or vice versa. And we think it would be safe just to add language to make sure that it's in there. You have to be in the same vicinity. It's not just about being in the same building, but you need to actively be supervising your child, just to make sure it's safe for the kids. And then the parents are there to address any behavior. We also wanted to change the section that's titled restrooms to library spaces. So right now there's a section in there, it says restrooms. And then we want to amend that restrooms are to be used only for the intended purpose. It currently says that restrooms are to be used, the lavatory is to be used for washing hands and face, and we were crossing that language out and saying intended purpose, to address situations as if someone needs to use it to brush their teeth or don't dye your hair in our sink. And then we wanted to add under library spaces, youth spaces, because in the future we are establishing designated youth areas for the youth and their families. And then we wanted to add another line about unauthorized spaces, staff only, that are not open to the public. So yeah, forget two different computers happening. We currently do not have any language about recreational wheeled devices being prohibited inside the library building. This has been an issue with skateboards, roller skates, and it's not safe. It's not safe for kids to roller skate. It's not safe for someone to use their skateboard in the library. We also wanted to add language about the following personal behaviors not allowed. So we did address broadly about acceptable behavior, but among these 4 months, these are issues that we have come across repeatedly, and having very specific language will allow the staff more confidence in addressing them. So laying down, running, or otherwise misusing library space, equipment, and furniture beyond its intended purpose, using cell phones on speaker mode, producing noise that could disturb customers, and excessive public displays of affection. These are all issues that we have probably dealt with weekly. Producing the noise that could disturb customers could be someone using their laptop without headphones. We have it where you use like our computers, the library computers with headphones, but there's nothing in there about personal computers with headphones. Using cell phones on speaker mode is a common problem. And believe it or not, excessive public displays of affection too is something that we've had to address. So we're just establishing more defined parameters to make sure that it's just safe and comfortable and welcoming for everybody. Next one. We wanted to add language about customers not being permitted to remain in the building upon closing at 8 o'clock. When the library closes, it means the building is closed as a whole. And then we wanted to change language that says a customer may not distribute literature or otherwise solicit customers inside library buildings or parking areas, to change it to a customer may not distribute literature or otherwise solicit, panhandle, or proselytize on library property. This language is very similar to what our bulletin board language reads. And it also covers situations in which people are leaving little religious flyers in areas, and it also prohibits customers from asking other customers for money, which is something that we've had to address.
For library use.
Yeah. Did y'all want to go through that one before moving on to the membership one?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
It's free calling.
Okay. So does anyone, thank you,
You're welcome.
first off, for coming to us with asking for recommendations on the things that you guys have been dealing with inside of the library. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or edits to what has been presented for the library use policy revisions?
Couple, you know, mind.
Okay,
So going down the list.
Yes.
I think it's a great idea to review these annually. Totally fair, reasonable good idea, keep everything up to date, no pushback there. I would like to discuss more that second bullet about the
Mhm.
paragraph added, second paragraph of the policy.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely understand and agree with the sentiment. I do want to understand more if it's necessary. And the reason I'm adding that in is that later in the policy, towards the end, it talks about how whenever there is an issue, my administration has to address this somehow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 3-step process, right? In which it culminates in if somebody is so disruptive that they can't actually, they should not remain,
Mhm.
Kyle PD addresses that situation. I think that's the right call, totally fine. Having this paragraph at the beginning, I worry a bit about the optics there, of it seems a little more punitive
Mhm.
and restrictive of library services than I love. And I'd like to better understand, is that needed here? Has there been a breakdown of that later process to where additional language would give staff more ability to address problems that are?
So this is added just because what we've realized in these past 4 months with the current policies, is that there's going to be issues that arise that are not going to be addressed by the policy, black and white. And so it's not to allow us to go on a power hungry trip here. It's just to kind of give us that, what's the word I'm looking for? It allows us to address situations that might not be explicitly stated in the policies.
And I also worry along that line of, I want to make sure that library staff has the discretion to address a wide variety of situations. And we obviously can't itemize every single issue that could ever pop up. People are creative, they'll find new ways
Yes.
to be disruptive. And I'm also thinking about if we give a defined list of these things are explicitly prohibited,
Mm-hmm.
that does give people, I think, a blueprint of where can you push the lines, where do you start protesting the policy. If I can't do this thing, I'm going to do that thing now. If we spell it out, I worry about that unintended consequence that the original ambiguity, which I agree with the point that does exist with the existing policy,
Mm-hmm.
does give the staff more discretion there and can work within that, unless the answer really is that you've been working with it for 4 months and it's not working. Like that's a different conversation. But I want to make sure the necessity of it before you recommend that up to council.
Mm-hmm. This particular paragraph in particular.
Also later when we itemize under section 11A1, laying down, running, cell phone use, talking loudly, PDA. I don't disagree that those things should be moderated where appropriate. I do worry an itemization of it could open up a can of worms that maybe we don't really want to touch.
Yeah.
Unless there's an issue that you guys can't currently address with the language that currently exists, which I'd love to have that feedback to make sure that we're making a wise decisions here, but that's just my word of caution for those
Yeah.
sections.
This particular one with the list, it is because we have had a lot of issues, especially with individuals laying down, and having to address that. In some of their minds, it's like their second home. They're very comfortable. I appreciate that, but laying down in a chair or on a couch is not the intended purpose of that. And then it makes it where during those busy times where you have families all trying to use a particular space, there's now no place for other families to sit because one person is laying down, shoes off, super comfortable. And it makes it really difficult to address because that's not the intended purpose of that particular seating. We want people to be comfortable, but we also want others to feel comfortable to maybe sit next to them. Seating is limited in the library. I've also had an individual lay down in the aisle. They got comfortable looking through books, laying down in the aisle. That's unsafe. And so the laying down one is something that we probably address weekly. And it helps having that explicitly stated for staff that says, hey, we can't lay down. And we do get pushback. Well, why can't we lay down? And trying to say, well, that's not the intended purpose. This isn't a safe place. It just makes it a little bit easier when it's like, yeah, it's our policy and we just want, make sure you're being safe, leaving the aisles clear. Other people can enjoy this space.
Sounds to me like you're trying to like minimize argument, conflict, or back and forth when your library staff is addressing a specific behavior, right?
Yes, because these are the ones that we get the most of. So we were trying to address the behavior that we have to address frequently. So it's very explicit stated. This is like, we appreciate that you want to come use the library, but we can't lay down on these couches and make it where no one else can use this space. It's supposed to be for everyone.
So with the new blue couches in the children's area, they were purchased with the intent that caregivers could sit there comfortably, maybe with another child, read a book, and keep an eye on whatever was happening on the AWV computers as well.
Mhm.
We're having situations where adults with children are laying down while the children are roaming. The other is adults going to the couches and laying down. They don't have children or anything. That was a very appealing place to lay down. And then they will say, this is a couch, I can lay down if I want to. And the same with the U. It's happening in the U as well. They take off their shoes, which is part of the policy as well. And then they're laying down in that. And then it makes it so something that was made for 2-3 people now is one person. So the laying down has become an issue. And then in academic situations, a lot of times, like in a college stack, she'll have people lay down in but here we just don't have that kind of space. And we have people walking around and then it becomes an ADA issue as well. And so there really is just not a place to lay down, but they challenge us on that. Or we'll say, you can't sleep here. And you're like, I'm not sleeping, I'm just laying here.
So because you said, like, obviously we know that the policies have been in place for just the 4 months, right?
Mhm.
So were those issues being had before the 4 months, before the policy was in place?
Yeah.
How were you dealing with the situations then?
Well, we didn't have couches.
We didn't have the
We
U.
didn't have the.
That's
and
new.
the couches.
And then the couches are new. So we had just the seatings with the bar, just regular single seating. So the seating that allows multiple people to sit together is new.
So, because to your point, I think that to not be here again in 4 months, if there's
Mhm.
other things, the minute that the more prescriptive you try and make this, you're going to, I think, lock yourself into those situations. Only and then something else is gonna come up and then you're gonna wanna come back and edit it. I think at one point when we were going through the policies, some of the input that was put forth was about having an all catch up and anything else, maybe at the direction of the director. I know that on page 20, number 1, and I know that's specific to number 1, but you have included but not limited to, right?
Mhm.
And so is that including but not limited in the wrong place? And should that be sort of taken out and start with the personal behavior? Like this is a list of items that includes but not limited. Because I'm not sure if the folks that are doing the things that they're doing, are they aware of the policy, right? And so when you ask them nicely to stop and they don't, and they challenge you, is it more about saying it's in the policy or coming with them, we'll read the policy, right? And so I don't know, it's just something to consider, because I do think that the more detail you put in there,
Yeah,
you're gonna.
that makes sense.
So,
And Mary, I would read page 5 of the current policy, if a customer may not block access to an entrance, passageway, or resource.
Mhm.
That would address the ADA concerns in my mind, blocking the resources of the couch, like. I would read that section to give the staff that authority and discretion to enforce those specific instances. And I hope you don't take that feedback as I disagree with what you're saying. I think everything you're trying to prevent and apply pressure before is appropriate.
Mhm.
I just don't want to box you into a situation that you can only follow 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, we have item 5 now to add in. And there's also the optic of a restriction on a very public place that I worry is not the intention, but could be read into of trying to apply more lines that are necessary, which I don't think is your intention. But I worry somebody would read that and maybe would see other pushback.
I just want to add on, I think that's exactly the friction that I'm experiencing is that anytime you start to list things, I think it's helpful to zoom out. It's like, are we being too imprecise in the original statement? And that's how we feel like we need to add a bunch of things. And so maybe it's, because I do, you've said it a couple of times, like beyond its intended purpose. And I think the way that you described the issue that you regularly run into is more than just beyond its intended purpose. It's beyond its intended, like this is not the right word, but like you're hogging it for other people, just like you can't hog this whole table for yourself. It's not fair to the purpose of the table and the seating and the capacity. Similarly, we would discourage anyone from doing anything that reduces the capacity of that resource. I think that is a stronger argument that people can understand as well, and does your staff a service to be able to say it that way. Just like you can't lay down in the aisle, not because the rule says you can't lay down in the aisle, but because it is an ADA or a safety concern. People absorb that, I think, better than something that feels very arbitrary. I can't lay down on a couch because the couch is not for laying down, versus cannot lay down on the couch because it reduces them from seating because they're looking very good already. It makes it uncomfortable for them to share.
And that makes sense. That makes sense when someone is willing to listen to that type of input. This will help us in situations where we are getting pushback in these types of instances. And just a little background, the laying down, running, climbing, these 3 particular things are actually stated in a lot of library policies because it's a thing a lot of libraries deal with. So, you know, we reference all of our benchmark cities, so Georgetown, Round Rock, Pflugerville, they're going to state these things as well. I included them specifically because they are ones that we do get pushback for. And yes, if someone is willing to listen to us and they're willing to like actively understand, yes, this is not for their intended purpose, that's totally fine. This is to help us in those situations where we have an individual that is, no, I want to see this in writing. No. And they will push back. And then you are then stuck in a situation where I've had to do this, where you have to print out the policy and highlight it where it says it explicitly. And we did include in there also otherwise misusing library space, equipment, and furniture beyond its intended use, because we couldn't put in there, hey, you can't put we don't want to put everything like you said, like to block us in, like don't put your feet up on the table, don't put your feet up on another chair. But this would help us address that. But those types of occurrences don't happen as often as us having to explain to people, you can't climb up on the chair and in the table. Or if you've been in our children's area, you see those little steps right where it starts to hook, and we see kids climbing up on those little steps all the time. And then we can address it as like, that's not safe, it's not climbing. But this is really to help us in those situations where you're having an individual that they're not listening to reason. They want to see it. They want to see it. And these are the 3 things that, we have to address the most. And so, we can adjust it. It's just from having these in place for 4 months and then trying to enforce them. Those are the things we notice that might help us the most with ensuring it is a safe environment for everybody.
With respect to unit commentary, one thing I wanted to mention was a couple of years ago when we were looking at policies. I think I was partnering with you. So do you remember the Fort Worth one? I believe it was their library that had a lot of very intensive rules. And if I recall correctly, one of our colleagues kind of
oh, we can't do that. But they were dealing with a lot of theft, they were dealing with a lot of destruction of property. And so some of the things that they put in their guide were, really, this happens in the library, but they had to. And so I understand what other people are saying, but I think you do need to list things. It's not uncommon for other libraries. They do like, it's kind of a benchmark, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I understand a lot of times you want to nip it in the bud before it can escalate. And because it is something that you're dealing with consistently all the time, I do see why it would make sense to have it in the policy so you can produce the policy when you need to show that that is something that they're not, allowed to do. Also, I wonder if it would be a good idea to maybe have signage in certain areas.
Oh, definitely. Once this is approved,
Mhm.
we have the acrylics, we're ready to go.
Okay.
So that we are taking a little bit of that staff monitoring and
Mhm.
having signage. Signage can be a 50-50.
Sure.
whether it's read and understood or not,
Right.
but we can't post anything yet.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I was, just in, sometimes, a lot of times signage will prevent the conversation from having to be had altogether.
And sometimes it's oh, did you see the sign?
Mhm. Sure.
Signage is very good to fan a light point out of it.
So.
So I think there's two things, right? One is the list.
The list.
Two
The
is
statement.
the statement, right?
Mhm.
And I know I'm personally, the list, I get, I would be fine moving forward with that. I just think it's need to be cautious about it for the reasons said. I do agree with you on the statement. It's a little strong, especially at the very beginning. And if you're already getting pushback, is someone going to use that to say you're impeding them and that now you're going to be in a completely different light? And then the last thing that I have, section 3, just more for consistency purposes, the parent giver, caregiver. I think in some cases it's parent or caregiver. In other cases it's parent slash caregiver. In some cases there's the space in between the slash. So you may want to just look at all of that, just keep it consistent. Otherwise, that's the things that people will try and tear apart. So, what did you mean here versus here?
And recognizing that I have one vote, I think we don't strike the right balance on the itemization of the list. I get your logic, I get why you're doing it. I don't like that balance. I would recommend reworking that. I don't have a good answer for you yet as to what that would look like, but I also hear my colleagues and it sounds like I'm in minority and I'm okay with that.
I have a suggestion. I think that where I find the most friction is that the grouping seems inapt. Laying down and running are very different things. Running is not necessarily misusing space. It is unsafe. Running is unsafe. And so then it is sandwiched in between two things that take advantage of the resources and like really misuse those resources. So I think, and even those two are very different. Like they're cross purposes here. Like laying down is hogging a space and making it hard to also say no to other things like sleeping and supervising children. Running is just unsafe, and climbing is actually a danger to people, unsafe, as well as property. And
And Joy, I want to add onto that, because I think that's probably my point here, is that the existing policy, section 12, part B, the staff member determines a violation of this policy so serious that the customer remaining in the library faces a danger to the library property, the library staff, or the other customers, or interferes with the use and enjoyment of the library by other customers. The staff member will ask the customer to leave without an initial oral warning. That captures, I think, all the concerns, and if there's a discretionary concern that this needs to be addressed, I would read that you have the authority already under council approved policies to address that. without needing to itemize a list that could open up a can of worms that we don't know where it's gonna land. That's how I would read it, but exactly to your point of that's the main concern. And I agree that that's a concern that should be addressed, especially if they have frequent instances of that occurring. I would just read that you have that assessment ready. I mean, is there a need to change it? I don't know that I would say yes, but I recognize that I'm one vote out of 6 here today, that maybe you might want.
And I think that's why you may want to have this is including but not limited at the very top before all the items. Because then whether you add the new items or not, you're saying this is a starting list of the most common behaviors that we're probably not okay with. But we're not saying this is it, which then gets to the other part.
So we're thinking of removing that first paragraph because we think we already cover it in other ways throughout the document. And we might land where on the included but not limited to, we sort of pull those out and list them more separately other than several in one. And I do like, Joy, what you said as far as beyond its intended purposes, maybe something more beyond or reduces capacity of its intended purpose. So maybe we can land on the laying down, running, and then that changing beyond or reduces capacity of its intended purposes.
Not to open whole can, but I'll be looking at the entire item 11. It does read much less clearly than other things. Like A, the entire section A is about a kind of a mishmash of things. And then like item B, again, is just like a list of things you cannot do. And then item C is a list of other things that you cannot do. So it's 3 lists of things you cannot do. They're not titled. They just are things you cannot do. I think there's some massaging of that language that might be really helpful. Even just partaking in excessive PDAs of affection probably could fit somewhere into the language of it. Yeah, so I think there's some room to move things so that it feels more.
Where would that fit in item B?
Item B is about sexually explicit audio and video, sexual contact, sexual intercourse, like showing video, things like that. I think acting out in inappropriate PDA also falls in the category of that's too explicit for this public space. But
what
either way,
about
it's hard
just
to
like-
know because I don't know what item B is about. If I look at item B and I am not here in the board, even the policy, it's just a list of 5 things that I can't do for item B. What is the theme of it? I'm sure.
Yeah,
Maybe the sentence should say customers may not. And then group all of these, however you want to group sexually explicit or the right phrase. And then, to Mary's point, these include, and then put the list underneath. And so then you'll have the groupings. So we have certain behaviors that are around bad sex and employment. I should refer each of them one day and then do it that way. And so, on the other things, you can just have a grouping and have the verbiage. This includes, and may include others. Mary said it perfectly, and then list them. So then they'll see the grouping, and they'll know, okay, we have to, we're supposed to come to the library. Oh, we want to use that one.
So you want the grouping or you don't want the grouping? Do you want a list of customers may not, and then it just go through and do away with?
No, if the grouping would highlight it more, and then the list is examples, because there could be something else that could pop up under offensive gestures or those kinds of displays that you haven't encountered yet. So you would have something that references in general this grouping of all of these things.
So the heading. Okay.
Yeah, and then they'll see the heading and then Mary's language, she suggested it includes but not limited to, yes, and then have the list.
Okay, I think that'll work.
if we've been on that topic, I don't mind changing to a different section other than question it, but I don't want to railroad the conversation if we're still on that section.
Thank you for entertaining it.
Yeah, of course. No, I understand. So just let me make sure I understand so that we keep the ABC, but they have more of the about a heading.
A statement
The
or a
statement,
header
yes.
that explains what
Okay.
this is.
This, under this would be these kind of physical acts.
Now,
And this would be more on the other about the building, vacating, things like that. And then the next would be almost like that really extreme situations.
so the question would be, if we make those changes, do we need to come back and get those changes approved? Because if we make those changes, it's changing up the language, like we need to potentially suggest the type of language or changes we're wanting if we're wanting to take it to council. Because if we're adding headings and examples and statements, that's redoing the language altogether. So we would have to redo that, come back.
Mhm.
And I just want us to be mindful that that's gonna probably be the process.
So option 1, 2, or 3 is what we're talking about. Spencer, did you have more for the libraries? Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Right now I have, and I want to make sure, like, take out the first paragraph.
mhm.
Um, and then the headings examples for
Mhm.
this one. And then I didn't know if we're also suggesting taking out the list or not. There was some feedback.
I think we were spreading one out further.
Okay,
So one, then,
so this one is gonna require rewording altogether if we're changing out how we're presenting it. So, we just have to be mindful of that.
but if we can agree that we're going to head them and that we can do that it's simple headings such as those, about the building and then about, the treatment of inside the building or really truly behavior, laying down all those.
Like, were you talking about A, B, and C, right? Because it's basically just saying like, these are minor, this one's moderate, these are no-goes, is kind of how it's the intention of how it's supposed to be laid out. It's your minor offenses, your As were the ones that we can address this, give you a heads up, inform you, warn you, then we take action. B is that we're warning you or we're taking action. C is, okay, this is getting to the point that we just need to take action and potentially need to escalate it.
And
Maybe, wait. You're saying that personal behavior A and violation A are linked, or what are you saying about violations A, B, and C?
They are linked. Yeah, did y'all not recognize that the first?
No, because every other item has A's and B's, but C's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if a customer violates these rules under A, a staff member shall, and so it's related to
The way
item
that it
A.
reads,
Mm-hmm.
and I have always thought this.
Yeah,
is
no
that
worries.
This is an escalation path,
Mhm.
not a coding.
So what if we move A under A grouping, B under these are the violations of this?
I would not recommend that. So I'm thinking of
Okay.
things like, distributing literature, otherwise solicit panhandle, that section of this policy. If I come in and keep panhandling and you advise me, hey, please stop.
Mhm.
And I say, no, and I keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. At some
we tell
point,
you
it
the
should
consequence.
escalate to the
Mhm.
police being involved and being.
We actually ask you to leave, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and that shouldn't block you guys into saying you could only do item
Right.
A in the violation. But at some point, it becomes so excessive and egregious that you have to go and escalate it down to C. And I don't want to block you into saying only A to was A and B to B. I think it's, if I understand from the team here, the personal behavior A, B, C is meant to describe different types of violations.
So,
And then A, B, C under violations is a escalation path for you guys to follow. So you did a process of trying to deconflict before it escalated to a point that A, B is involved. That's how I would recommend interpreting from my colleagues. And Jessica, I know you were asking about whether or not like the process for this council approval. My vote would be that it be corrected or updated, brought back to here before recommending council. That would be my personal vote, but I'm 1 of 6.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
If you had some more.
I do.
over here.
Hey, under library spaces, tracking why we break that out, I do think back to like 2023, where there was a fire in Kyle and the library service in back position. And thinking about recent floods we had over to the
Mhm.
west,
Mhm.
things could happen again. The library could be called upon to be a shelter again for the community.
Mhm.
In those instances, some relaxation of shaving and other hygiene standards that we currently prohibit under the current policy for day-to-day use, which tracking as a reasonable limitation. Relaxing some of that could be appropriate, but I want to understand what would occur in that situation again, what supersedes
Right.
what, how would we?
So when those are engaged, Jimmy Johnson, who's our head of that emergency protocol, they come in and kind of, oh, I don't want to say take over, but they do take over. And their rules and regulations, the police are here, constables are here, he's here. And
Mhm.
so it's, the whole shift would change. Like we wouldn't have programming, we might have cots. So they take over basically precedence of us being a one or cooling station or any kind of emergency situation. We would try to have some services, but they would be limited and the EMS would be in control of what's happening.
Only for its intended purpose, I
Mhm.
think is the main driver that for all of these recommendations, I like that verbiage. And so making sure that we stick to that versus itemization, that's where I personally draw that balance. That's just my recommendations.
What do you think about? We have signage that says that these couches are intended to be a place to sit and not lay or sleep. Because it's the intended purpose. Do we have to list it?
I wouldn't think you have a policy that says you have to have a policy approved first before you have a sign up. I think you could do the sign. That's my.
So the sign is in alignment with
Yeah.
the overall broad. I think making this specific just helps people understand a broader policy. I don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as it's not.
I also agree that if we went broader in the policy, that next level of, would be the signage. That's in line with the broader, and you could just narrow it down, whatever section that you're putting signage up, that it would.
I love signage because so few people are going to actually read the library policy unless they've gotten in trouble for something and have requested it.
Signage is very hit or miss, so we have to be very intentional.
Sure.
If it's too much signage, people won't read it.
Mhm.
And so it is something we try to take into consideration when we're thinking of how to inform customers, because there's a lot of behavior we do have to address. And so that's just one of them, like laying down is probably, it's a big one, but yeah, we just have to be very intentional with how we address them. So we're not overwhelming people. Just
Well, hopefully when you say, sorry, you can't lay down here, and who said, like, the sign,
the sign.
not to go and find something.
But instead, you're pointing to the sign.
Literally, right.
Right, just to address the most egregious behaviors that you see. over. The signage is probably helpful.
I would think you need both. Because if somebody takes down the sign and challenges the sign, it's also in the policy. I think they need to manage.
I mean, there have been instances, I do have to highlight, like stuff in the policy and hand it to the customer and explain like, look, these are rules we are all following by. And I've had people come back and apologize, after they take a pause, but we do get pushback and it's just, not so much as like for me or Leslie, but this is really supporting our staff and empowering our staff how to handle these situations if it ever escalates to a point where they have to bring out the policy and hand out the policy.
I guess my point of view is that that's a them problem, that
Mhm.
they're escalating. And no matter how much logic you show, how many pieces of paper you show, they're not in a space to hear that and receive that information.
Mhm.
And so better to stop that and not try to logic a way to calm and either ask them to leave or reinforce that this is the policy. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter that it's not. If it is, the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. They don't have to say it is illegal for you to speed at 31, 32, 33, 34. It's like, where does it say I can't drive 34 miles an hour? It says the limit is 30. And so I think that is a similar approach that I think would be great in the policy. Just here's the expectation, and the staff has a right to say that. And if someone's pushing back, we don't just like tack it onto the policy, but we instead say, this is a staff member telling you the policy. And as long as your staff is trained correctly to interpret the policy with its intention, stand behind the staff to say that. I don't think that they need a piece of paper behind them. In fact, I think it's most of the time not helpful, and that person will even think about what they said and come back. But it doesn't have anything to do with that piece of paper.
Just working with the public day in and day out, we just have come to realize when there's certain behavior that's explicitly stated as this is unacceptable behavior, it helps us address it. Because yeah, you're right, there's gonna be days where someone's not in a place to hear that. And whenever that, it doesn't matter what we say, they're not gonna be in a place of, yes, that's not for the intended purpose. And so it allows us to firmly say, look, laying down is unacceptable. It's not the intended purpose of this couch. It states right here that laying down is unacceptable. This is me telling you and informing you. So we need to correct the behavior or you're gonna be asked to leave. And it's 5 times easier to have it where you can point it out as opposed to like, I've already told you it's not the intended purpose. And then you get someone that's like, but it's a couch, but I can lay on a couch, and it's like, yeah, I understand, but this isn't your house. This is a public space. This is meant for people to sit together. I don't understand. It's a couch. I can lay on a couch. Okay, I hear you. And so it just helps when you have it where it's explicitly stated in those types of situations, because those are the types of encounters we will deal with weekly. And so we could have addressed all the things, but we really tried to really focus on the ones that we deal with constantly, and laying down, running, climbing. Running, it's not just a matter of like, I mean, it's people playing hide and seek running. Yes. Like that's misusing the space, the climbing one is people climbing onto a table. We see that. And it just helps it helps us because, you can address a parent who's like already frazzled because they brought their kids to the library and there's, it's already a lot. You're taking the time to bring your kids and you're trying to address like, there's no climbing stuff for it's one thing to say you can't climb onto the table. That's not the intended purpose of a table, but it's another to say, hey, like we can't climb onto this table. It's just not safe, right? And so having it where it's just stated allows us where when we start getting that pushback, when it gets to that point where they're like, I'm going to talk to the manager. Okay, I'm done talking to the manager. I'm now going above the manager. And it just allows us to address it while also ensuring that we're providing a safe environment and a comfortable environment. So, I mean, I think it helps having certain behavior listed out because I'm usually the one they come get. But
So understanding that we can't list every possible behavior or predict what you may have to address in the future. I do hear and support that maybe just giving you specific language for the things that you address the most because you know the patrons, the customers of our area and what your librarians deal with. I'm in support of that, listing those.
Yeah, I feel like you have a fair ask. It's new. property brought into the library experiencing issues. I think the language, it sounds like the language will, or we are hoping that if we put it in here, that will help you in dealing with the public and correcting any type of unwanted behavior with those things. I do think a bunch of lists get long. We can, you know, I do agree with Spencer too, like once you start nitpicking things, it can, you know, it can, box you in. But I think it's worth a try to see if it's helpful to you by putting it in here to see how those interactions play out. After it's in the policy, after you maybe incorporate some signage that coincides with the policy says.
Working the titles can help it feel like not just literally a list of like 15.
Yeah, that
you
too.
can't do, but really making some sense of the behavior that's unacceptable. Because the behavior that's unacceptable is not really running. It is creating a disruption. And here's are the ways that you're disruption, creating something in a situation that's unsafe. And these are the situations. Here are some examples of unsafe situations that you could create that are not allowed. I think that kind of reworking those titles can help feel less harsh.
Mhm. And I do like the language to the intended use. But I can absolutely see somebody be like, well, what's the intended use? And where is that stated? Where does it say what the intended use is? I absolutely see that conversation happening. So in that case, in those particular situations, having something else that gives you further explanation on what intended use is, especially dealing with the particular behavior that you're trying to not have, could be helpful in de-escalation or, you know, preventing something from escalating further.
Now, it's not uncommon for libraries to list out in their library use, library appropriate use policies of unacceptable behavior. Most libraries will just make a list of unacceptable behavior. And so that's kind of where this is coming from. When we went to go do these amendments and revisions, we had a list, like staff gave us a list of unacceptable behaviors. And we were trying really hard to kind of fold them into the current policy as to how can we address it with the current policy. So there was work on the back end of trying to see, as far as the behavior we're dealing with, if we can address it with what we currently have in place. So any of the things that we have put up for potential revisions, it's because it needs to be stated clearly, or it hasn't been addressed. It hasn't been addressed in the current policy. So just kind of background, no.
Procedural.
Yes.
So I don't hear a consensus.
Well, I have it in my mind that y'all have provided, are gonna provide guidance, and we're gonna reword this. But
Thinking about these policies as a whole,
mhm.
some of these policies I suspect we're gonna have less discussion on. So there are fewer changes that are probably less controversial.
Yes.
Are we allowed to split the recommendations? We move to, in this case, return the library's policy back to staff for revisions, and then we allow the other ones to move forward to council. Would that cause a hangup that we are blind to, that more education would be helpful for us to make our vote?
So it will cause a hang up because we do have to, so y'all went and did, helped us revise the makerspace policy. We're not taking that to council yet until we have these other revisions, because we have to provide a whole resolution.
We have to have an addendum to the resolution. And so we chose to pause on that after speaking with Amber and Jennifer, because then we'd need to go back again with these. And we'd have another resolution on top of the resolution we just had. So we can't open the makerspace and implement these until we get these to council. They don't want to necessarily do the resolution and then we come back and do another resolution to the resolutions documents. It starts to get, so it would be helpful if we can get through these. Here's an idea. There are 15 of these. Can we remove the BC and just say a customer may not, and we list them out? Do they have to be in groupings of A, B, C? And truly, the violations, each one enacts its own type of resolution or action. So if you're jumping on the couch, it's going to be an ask that you get down. It's an ask to pay the attention. But if you are if you're, enacting a criminal act, we're going to involve the police. But some of this is just kind of common sense of escalation
Sure.
that the staff would know. But do we need this BC? And we know what we need to do to de-escalate. Usually the staff try, they get a manager, they get an assistant director, they get a director. But if there was a situation even today, and I'm not going to get into it, but several of us were involved in it. It never escalated to the police, but it was I would say an all-day de-escalation in different avenues. All it took was conversation. And I think we have to trust the staff and then the staff have to trust us that we're going to handle it. But given this week's situations in the world, in our country, the staff were nervous. So can we think about that where we remove the heading and we just say, here are these 15 things, and that's very common. In fact, a lot of libraries, there's pages and pages of them.
Right.
Fort Worth.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, but do we need them separated? Jessica, that's a question for you too. If they're all just, you cannot do this, can we just leave them and take out B and C and just here is this list of 15 items? I think there's 15 there.
Like the little phraseology that Mary suggested earlier, including but not limited to.
Included but not limited to.
So understanding that feedback, Leslie, certainly is a perspective. And I'm more in favor of not dragging this out longer, so that we have other considerations on the plate. So if I understand right, the modifications we discussed is that second paragraph is being removed.
Yes.
Yes.
The library spaces section 9 would be amended as currently written.
Correct.
Item 11, a customer may not unreasonably disrupt the normal use of library services or property by the library staff or other customers. I want to edit that.
Okay.
Or to also include, I think you had great language there, Leslie, of reducing library capacity. I think that is something that we need to be addressing. So unreasonably disrupt the normal use of library services, property, or reduce library service capacity. For library staff or other customers, including but not limited to. And at that point, we're having a discussion on which items make the list. And section B, section C setters are relevant. They get struck because who cares? Your escalation matrix on the violation side is enough for your staff at discretion to be using for whatever appropriate remedy is there.
Okay.
That's how I understood it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I like that add or reduce library service capacity, that's good there.
And just with section 3, the cleanup of the caregiver parent, I think that's the
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
That's just
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote those down as well. Okay.
I still recommend reducing that list, but I respect that I am a minority.
How about we keep the list?
Okay. Right, we'll take out the BC, we'll add the reduces section. I wrote it all down. Okay. We'll keep the list as is for now with the revisions. And we'll see.
Is everyone,
That
It might read better if it's unreasonably disrupt or reduce capacity. The
yeah,
normal use of library services or and property for library staff or other customers. That might read.
say it again, Spencer?
A customer may not unreasonably disrupt or reduce library capacity
Okay,
for library services, property, and property for library staff or other customers.
okay.
Just because I know that the formatting can get tricky, that would mean that that statement he just said goes under personal behavior, and then everything under that would be.
1, 2, 3, 4,
No, it
5.
would be D.
Okay.
For the items. So I'm going to. So that we don't have to go back at it for formatting.
got it. So that's your header, and then everything is from there.
Yeah,
They're saying.
the small eyes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
But it wouldn't, it have to be,
yeah.
this is item 11. And then this is item 10.
Jessica,
But I don't find where there's the A's and the B's and the C's.
But for formatting after an item 11, it would have to be, I have to be a letter. Format once.
I see what you're saying. Gotcha. I thought you were starting one at D's, A, B, C, and then 1, 2, 3. I thought, gotcha.
It's purely formatting.
Yes. I'm with you.
okay.
Is that any other recommendations, everyone? I think we're good to go through the options 1, 2, and 3 on whether we are approving with the modifications and then to be presented to council. It sounds like that's, we're going with option 2. Option 2. Option 1 is approved to be presented to council. Option 2 is approved with modifications to be presented to city council. And then option 3 is advise staff and then bring back to the board. So we're not doing that. And option 2 is what we're trying to go for here. Which we're good for library use.
Spencer, I want you to read your note one more time, just to make sure a customer.
No, I was making sure that you feel comfortable. A customer may not unreasonably disrupt or reduce library service capacity for library services and property for library staff or other customers,
Wait,
including.
pause.
Yes, ma'am.
Reduce library service capacity for library services,
And
May not reduce capacity,
library service capacity.
may not unreasonably disrupt. That doesn't flow right, does it?
Or reduce capacity for library services.
Disrupt.
Take the first library out.
Reduce service capacity for library services.
I think you can just say reduce capacity for library services and property.
How about this? A customer may not unreasonably disrupt the normal use or reduce capacity of library services and property for library staff or other customers.
Okay, you got that one, Jessica.
Yeah.
And that was your first choice.
Okay. I'll read it again just to make sure we land on the final answer. A customer may not unreasonably disrupt the normal use of or reduce capacity. I guess use
Reduce capacity.
of library services
Mhm.
and property for library staff or other customers, including but not limited to listing.
this is recorded, so it's fine.
But now we've said it all in one nice, okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Okay, okay.
Okay. We're moving on to. Next,
Membership and library cards.
click on library cards. Let's do it.
We want to add something in there about applicants must register for a library card at least 15 minutes before closing. It takes time for us to establish library cards. We have to look up residency if they live in Hayes County. And it's a process if we're doing it well. Us rushing through it just creates more errors. And so we definitely want to establish that it has to be done at least 15 minutes before closing. And then we want to add in there about youth library cards being connected to their parent or legal guardian's library card. Right now, we do not have that language. Right now, it just says that to get a youth resident library card, the adult must come in, present that they live in Hughes County. Well, what ends up happening is that if this youth card has fines or fees, and then they age out, well, who's going to take care of the lost or damaged items? And so we want to establish that they are connected to an adult, because once that kid ages out, the adult is ultimately responsible for anything on that youth card. They're signing that they are ultimately responsible. So it just allows us to potentially handle situations where this has happened a lot this summer, where we have somebody coming in and they have a library card, but it's from when they were 13 or 14, and they have fines, fees, missing items. And now they're an adult and they're wanting to get a card, but their last card's not attached to anybody. So we don't know who ultimately we would need to contact. Hey, we got to take care of this. So this is just establishing that connection. So when kids do age out, they're able to get a library card and not be held accountable for charges on their card as a kid.
Could that be added to that sentence? Connected is big. The way that you said it was
Mhm.
very explicit.
I have no idea what I just said.
Like.
I know, it's recording.
It was like, library cards must be connected there. Like something about that. We're saying responsibility, accountability, financially responsible. I think that's really important. Not just connected, like, oh, I can easily use this card, but you're ultimately responsible financially. Those are not the right words, but I do think that extra clause make that very clear.
Sure.
And the parent is ultimately responsible for loss, damage, stolen, I don't know, items and fines. I actually had to do that when my teenagers became adults and came in and paid their fines and they got adult
On cards.
cards, yeah.
And we celebrate that when, but
So should we add a second sentence that explicitly states that fines, fees, all the things that are incurred under a youth library card when they age out, that is the responsibility of the parent or guardian or caretaker?
Not only when they age out, always.
Always, always.
parent is responsible for all activity on a youth card. Another word we use is link. They're linked.
Mhm.
What happened here is that youth were given cards. Traditionally, what happens is the adult has a card and the children get cards under it.
I see.
We've since pivoted to that,
Mhm.
but we have danglers. So
Okay.
we're going to have to kind of go forward and backward. Parent is responsible for all activity and fees on youth card.
And Leslie, when we debated this a while ago, I remember what occurs here, when a parent is responsible for a child's card, does that also include access to materials? And
Mhm.
it came down to, at the end of the day, the parent would know what the child is checking out and is responsible regardless for that activity, right, wrong, or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
the parent is, and this is where having that parent complete the application is how you make that happen. That they are, in the application, it says you are taking responsibility for what's checked out and what is returned in the condition it left in.
That does, I would imagine, cause privacy concerns for the child, the minor, but I don't know where the law stands in terms of enforcing those privacy rights over parental rights. I'm not an expert there. I just want to flag that for future thoughts.
Okay, we'll add that.
And then we have blocked accounts. We want to add a section in there about blocked youth accounts are the responsibility of the parent or legal guardian, which is what we kind of just addressed.
Mhm.
The parent or legal guardian's account will also be blocked until issues on the youth account are resolved.
This is a different policy.
Oh, that's the circulation.
Yeah,
You're right.
circulation. So this one for the membership and library cards, I think that those two things.
Yeah,
is-
it's just those two.
Mhm.
Do we need to have that language then about the parent being responsible? If they're responsible under the blocked section of revised circulation policy, my fear would be in the future, we change one or the other and it's incompatible. Is there a way that we could just reference that the linked to that revised circulation policy instead of being explicit inside of the library cards policy? Does that make sense, or did I speak in a circle?
No, it makes, sense. We could refer.
But
Yes.
that's only about blocked accounts, not about general responsibility.
Right.
The circulation policy, it does already state in the circulation policy, responsibility of youth selections of items rests solely with the parent or legal guardian. So that part is already addressed in circulation.
Mhm.
And then the blocked part about them having fines or fees, I include it in the blocked account and not in the membership, because right now anything over $0, you're blocked. And so that's why I include it in the blocked accounts, because once you're over $0, your account's blocked. And so it's then the parent's responsibility.
So should we do use library card that's attention to their parent or legal guardian's library card, and the parent or legal guardian must adhere to the circulation policy for their youth's card. That way it just points to this policy, you update one thing versus two things in the future.
Like that. It's very clean. Do I get?
So this one would be on number 2. Hear me?
For circulate onto the circulation? Yes. We'll move into that one.
Thing with
Yeah, but are we?
membership and library.
Oh, yeah, option number 2, yes, to approve.
With
and-
modification.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Let me get to the next one. Circulation policy, we wanted to add something there about blocked account. Blocked youth accounts are the responsibility of the parent and legal guardian. The parent or legal guardian's account will also be blocked until issues on the youth accounts are resolved. This is an issue because right now what we are experiencing is we are having youth materials missing, materials damaged. And instead of addressing it, the parents are just checking things out on their items and they're totally ignoring the kid's card. And then it just becomes as if they will never address it. And we want to make sure that they understand you are responsible for this and you have to take care of this. So that's why that is in there.
I like it. I don't have any. What about you? Revisions, add. Okay. I think we're good. We're good for option 2 on that one. Oh, option 1. One.
And then the texture policy, we just had an oversight when we did the texture policy. And we noticed that we didn't have a time limit for the texture memberships. So I wanted to include a time limit. Tech share memberships are valid for 1 year from the date issued or renewed. And that's because usually when you go to issue a tech share card, when we give one to take to another library, it's usually good for a year. And so when they bring us one from another library, we try to follow that same pattern every year. Right now, there's no limit in the actual policy, which is a little confusing.
But the tech share program is normally Texas wide,
Yes.
1 year cycle.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep. Option one.
But only for using the library. So if you obtain one from the library.
So if someone brings us,
Mhm.
like, if they come from Austin and they're wanting to get a library card, a text share membership with us, then yeah, it would be for a year. Which means in a year, their card would expire and they would have to go back to their home library and show us that they're still in good standing, that they're still a responsible patron.
Obtaining a tech care card from the library though,
From
to visit another library
us.
from us.
It's
There's not a expiration. The expiration only says from using a card from another library. So if I come back, should there be,
let's see where you're at.
I'm sorry, I've lost it.
If I understand your question, shouldn't there be a limitation of 1 year, both for tech share cards originating in Kyle and ending up in Kyle?
Yeah, accepted by the library, but also issued.
When we issue a card, a tech share card, and they take it to the other library, that other library has their own, like, they're gonna have their own like policies on how they do tech share memberships. So when we go to issue a tech share card, we're just stating it as this is the date. They're, they're good until this,
They're good until when?
they're at this date, they're a good patron, and we like sign off on it.
And that's valid for a year.
It's valid for a year.
Okay.
So
Wait,
it's
no,
valid for
that's
a
not-
year.
It is valid for a year.
It is
It needs to
valid
be
for a year.
added
Yeah,
into
it's
the
not-
obtaining.
Mm.
We have in section 2 and section 3, both should have a section about text share membership valid for 1 year.
You think it should be in section 2? One is, okay, so in 1 as well.
No, I mean, if you put it in one, just one cover, because it's the purpose of the tech share card, instead of trying to put it in 2 and 3. I don't know, just, but not as clean.
Yes. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
I want to make sure I understand how that works in practice. If I come in and ask for a tech share card to go to Austin, you're going to look at my account and say I'm a good, upstanding, whatever the phrasing is, in Kyle.
Correct.
And that certification lasts for a year, or it's timestamped and said, on this day I was good, and then if the other library has to call and check
No.
in.
It assumes you're good for 1 year. Now, you could have immediately the next day
Mhm.
lost damage items, but for 1 year, and then when other people are coming to us, it's under the good faith that they are doing that as well. But every library will regulate it differently. And TechShare has their own rules as well, as far as we agree to our partnership with them, if you will.
And so I get a tech share card today, check my account, I'm in good standing. 366 days from now, I'm in Austin. It's going to be governed by whatever their policy is in Austin. It wouldn't matter that I'm a year outside in Kyle. They're going to default to whatever their tech share policy is. And our 1 year stipulation on tech share from our library is irrelevant. Right?
That's what it sounds like.
It's the impetus of my question though was like, is there a limit to how many I can request? Like, can I just say like, hey, can I get another one? Like 6 months after I request one, can I get another one?
We do put it in the account that we've issued one, and we put in the account that we've issued a tech share cards, like, let's call it like a tech share passport. So you can go use another library, and we'll put the date in there as when it was issued. And so if we issue you another one, it's gonna have that original date we issued it. The reason there's not we didn't add a 1 year to obtaining a text share card from the library, like getting one from us, is because other libraries do have different policies. So you go to Austin, their text share membership policy might be different than Seguin. And I know, like, at least in Austin, I know they do a year from when you receive the text share card from the library. So let's say
Regional library.
so let's say if my home library is Kyle and they gave me that little text share card and I put today's date on there, September 11th. But then I don't go to get a text share membership with Austin until November. What the Austin does is they'll go and say it's a year from when your home library said you were in good standing. So every library is different. And that's why I didn't put the year in
And so
the.
putting a year inside section 2 wouldn't do anything, because it's not a governing factor of anything, it'd be the other library policy.
Just because other libraries do, everyone kind of creates their own.
Each library sets its own lending policies for visiting text share card users. Many libraries restrict the type or number of materials that a visiting text share card user may borrow. Others impose a minimum age requirement. Typically, libraries do not permit text share card holders to download ebooks or audiobooks. So they do have some background to that.
George, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just more wondering, like, so then in that year, can I come back and say, hey, actually, I need that again? I bet.
We've had this question actually happen because somebody came to get a text share renewal from us. And they said, hey, I need to, the library I've been using, they said, I need to get this renewed. And they handed us a text share card. And it wasn't us, it was Buda. And so the question we got was, well, can we issue them one if Buda's issuing them one? And the answer is yes, because at the end of the day, when they go to fill out an application at the new library, they're ultimately basically signing a contract with that library. And we're just saying, yeah, they use our library and they're in good standing. And they could do that with Buda too, because Hayes County, you can get a library card with all of us. And it wouldn't necessarily matter because we're just basically saying, yes, they use us. Yes, they're in good standing. And then it's up to that lending library that they're using to then kind of create this. And so that's what we're trying to do here is set the parameters for when people come to us from other libraries. And it's for a year from when it's issued. The text share policy gets us every time.
So that's a number 1.
That's number 1, yeah.
Yay.
Okay.
The displays and exhibit policy revision. The displays and exhibit policy, we have in there information about tabling. And we wanted to add language that allows official partnerships with the city of Kyle the opportunity to table basically once a month as opposed to once every quarter. So there are going to be organizations that have official partnerships with Kyle. And with that, they then are allowed to come and set up information tabling to our customers.
Because of their relationship and official partnership with the city.
Is it a city ordinance or a policy that reference in addition to say that for more information about city partnerships or whatever? This is like, I'm an official organization in the city.
I think there's just a way that we could see who is, and they're not that many.
No, I mean for the policy,
Yeah.
so that someone else could refer.
Please.
Like,
see
how would
the
you know it's an
city.
official?
Give examples of what an official partner would be?
We have partnerships with the Hayes County Food
These kind of big.
Food Bank, the Hayes County Master Gardeners. I believe, is there a women's shelter? We just are going into two grant funding for an official partnership. So those are the ones I know about.
But they do-
CAS might be another.
And why shouldn't we reduce everything to 30-day period? Why have a distinction between quarter versus 30 days? What would be the reason you shouldn't do 30 days across the board for partners and non-partners?
Go ahead.
So the lobby is highly used for studying, tutoring. Right now, we're able to look at the traffic difference between who's coming in the lobby and programs versus into the library proper, if you will. And there's a lot of studying going on, but also there's just that welcoming and coming in and doing whatever you came to do versus having and monitoring and providing the space frequently for anyone who wants to basically table. So the difference being is having the regular tabling quarterly, but a city affiliated official partnership allowing that a little bit more of the table. Right now, we only have the Hayes County Master Gardeners asking us to do it more frequently. But we want to be careful too, that when people are coming in, that it's just not a lot of table. We want it to feel very welcoming and not that it wouldn't be, but just too much tabling is too much coming into the lobby. And they typically tabling wants to happen at Saturdays. And then we have big programs and other events happening as well. And it is a benefit perhaps of being in an official partnership with the city.
And to track the differences there between partners and non-partners in 30 days versus 90 days. Do you feel that staff is currently equipped to properly monitor and adhere to compliance standards of that rule? Or would that be a layer of burden that?
They're coming
It's us.
to us.
It's us.
The cost of compliance, I want to make sure it's not
Yeah.
too high.
Everyone okay with that addition to the exhibits policy? I think it's when they changed that, right? With the change.
Please see.
Wherever the city listed. That's so
Okay.
As designated by.
Yeah. that it's not on roll, so you like, here's the list.
Yeah.
Like, we can't read that.
We could put a URL link or something
Yeah.
like that.
All right, so that gets to option 2 then. Good work, guys. Good move.
So
I
you need a
think we have to
formal
make a
motion
motion.
for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so. Of the policies that we went through, let's go through each of them. Exhibit 3, which was the revised library use policy, we are decided on option 2. For the revised membership and library cards policy, that also was an option 2. For the revised circulation policy, that was a number 1. The revised text share card policy, that was a number 1. And the revised displays and exhibits policy, that was another option 1. 2. Oh, no, option 2, I'm sorry.
We're adding where you can find.
We're adding the link to that one. Okay. Does anyone have any additional adds to anything I just said about the option? If not, motion to move forward with all the options that you stated. Second, all those,
Formalize, you have to make that. motion.
I feel like it has to be formal, like the last time we did it, when we did the policies.
okay, let's go.
Because of how we did the minutes, and when I go to do these minutes, I have to write down exactly every change that you've suggested.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm happy to make the motion to try and make the minutes My last word I'll give, make sure the group, I don't love the itemized list on the library use policy. I feel like I'm a minority. I'm gonna lose that, whether I fight it. Is that fair? Sounds like yes.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So motion to approve with modifications be presented to city council. Those modifications are to be performed on the library use policy, the library cards policy, no modification on the circulation policy, no modification on the text share card policy, and with modifications on the displays and exhibit policy.
All in favor? Ayes have it. You're approved. Awesome. Okay. And if anyone have any additional statements, ideas, questions, comments, Morgan does.
It was really nice working with everybody. This is great. My first time on the board was the worst experience of my life, but the past majority of the time has really helped me with my job. It's been one of the better experiences I've had as opposed to board memberships. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Morgan.
And I guess at some point when it comes up, now that I'm exiting, I did turn in a updated welcome packet.
Yes.
Did we get the Word document on that?
Oh, I
May
was
we-
supposed to email you and ask for the Word document.
The
In my head, I
vision
emailed you.
and mission are our new policy vision and mission. And then I think there was one other minor thing, but thank you so much for creating that. Very helpful.
I'll change those so the visions are they're on the website.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. They're ready to use them.
There will be a boards and commission reception in January, and you both will be recognized as going for your service to us and everything that we do.
Thank you.
And thank you so
We
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
A lot of hard work.
But we'll see you in January.
And I've learned a lot about the direction of my education moving forward. My goal is ultimately to be a librarian. So that should be fun.
Of course.
Come out with us in January.
Please do.
That's why I missed the mark. That's what I should have done my master's in. It's too late now.
Oh, it's never too late. Ever. Thank you both for your service on the board, and please don't forget us.
Mhm.
Okay, if we're ready to adjourn, I know we don't have to, but can I get a motion to adjourn? All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Try not to get my face up in there.
It's at 8:38.
Thank you all so much for making it so we can